We don't need them to make our cars, and they make a lot of them. We don't need their lumber because we have our own forests. We don't need their oil and gas.
If Canada can't survive, then maybe Canada should become the 51st state.
What Canadians are sending as a message to the Trump administration is that we don't agree. We're insulted, we're mad, we're angry.
The Canadians have stopped coming here with all the talk about tariffs and annexation.
We've not seen any Canadian traffic.
But Canadians are not coming at all.
Mayor Berkeley says the city's especially noticing a drop in international visitors from Canada.
Richard Clavitt arrived in Hollywood, Florida in 1985 with a dream and built an empire. For 35 years, he owned nearly 10 Canadian-themed motels along South Federal Highway, serving Quebecers escaping winter for sunshine. His hotels hosted weekly happy hours, community events, became home away from home for generations of snowbirds. Spring 2025, Clavitt watched his life's work evaporate. "People are canceling reservations left and right," he said, desperation creeping into his voice. By summer, Clavitt's assessment was blunt. "I think we need to give up on the Canadians." Giving up on the Canadians. That sentence would have been unthinkable 12 months ago. Canada and the United States enjoyed one of the most successful bilateral relationships in modern history. Allies, neighbors, families intertwined across an invisible border. 75% of Canadian international travel went to the U.S. 20 million Canadians visited annually, spending over $20 billion, supporting 140,000 American jobs. Then Donald Trump started calling Canada the 51st state. Not hypothetically, not as diplomatic pressure, literally. At a November 2024 Mar-a-Lago dinner, Trump told Prime Minister Justin Trudeau that Canada should become America's 51st state, joking about Trudeau becoming governor. What might have been dismissed as Trump being Trump became 6 months of relentless mockery. "Governor Justin Trudeau of the great state of Canada," Trump posted repeatedly. At the World Economic Forum in Davos, he told a stunned international audience that Canada should be the 51st state, met with shocked gasps. At every opportunity, Trump reminded Canadians their sovereignty was negotiable, their independence a punchline. Canadians responded by doing something unprecedented in peacetime between allied nations. They stopped coming. Not because they couldn't afford it, not because borders closed. They actively chose to spend their money anywhere but the United States. July 2025 data revealed the catastrophe. Canadian car travel to the U.S. collapsed 37% year over year. Air travel fell 24%. Overall, Canadian visits dropped 32% in a single month. By August, year-to-date Canadian visits had declined 25%, representing approximately 4 to 5 million fewer Canadian trips in 8 months. The economic destruction defies comprehension. The World Travel and Tourism Council projects $12.5 billion in lost international visitor spending for 2025, with Canada driving the majority. The U.S. Travel Association warns $21 billion could vanish if current trends hold. Either estimate is staggering. More importantly, the United States became the only country out of 184 economies analyzed that will see tourism spending decline in 2025. Every other nation on Earth, including war zones and pandemic hotspots, is gaining tourists. America is the outlier, the exception, the only destination people are actively fleeing. Canadians have money to travel. They're just spending it in Mexico, Japan, Europe, anywhere except the United States. Canadian tourism to Mexico surged 13% in 2025. Japan saw Canadian visits jump 31% in February alone. Flight bookings to France increased 11%, Italy 75%. Canadian domestic tourism boomed 30% as families discovered Tofino instead of Disneyland, Quebec City instead of New York, their own country's national parks instead of Florida beaches. The money didn't disappear, it just went somewhere else. Las Vegas, over 2,000 miles from Canada, watched its northern visitors vanish. Canadians contributed $3.6 billion annually to the Vegas economy and supported 43,000 jobs. MGM Resorts closed concierge desks at 6 properties, laying off approximately 30 employees. casino workers who weren't formally laid off found themselves on call indefinitely without shifts. The February 2025 timeline reveals how quickly relationships disintegrate. February 1st, Trump signed executive orders imposing 25% tariffs on virtually all Canadian goods. Same day, Trudeau urged Canadians to choose Canada for vacations. Foreign Minister Melanie Joly appeared on national television, suggesting Canadians cancel U.S. travel plans entirely. The response was instantaneous. Within weeks, polling showed 48% of Canadians had already canceled or were seriously likely to cancel U.S. travel. Nearly 900,000 fewer people crossed from Canada to the United States compared to March 2024. What makes 2025 categorically different from every previous dispute is Trump's relentless mockery of Canadian sovereignty. Previous trade disagreements over softwood lumber, dairy, auto parts never challenged Canadian independence itself. The 51st state rhetoric transformed a trade dispute into an existential threat. Polls showing 90% of Canadians oppose annexation and 82% would rather rejoin the British Empire than become American reveal depths of anger unprecedented in the relationship. 91% of Canadians now want Canada to rely less on the United States, a seismic shift in national psychology. The damage flows both directions, though asymmetrically. American visits to Canada fell 3.8 to 5.6% in the first half of 2025. While far less than Canadian boycotts, this still represents hundreds of thousands of fewer Americans crossing north. For the first time since June 2006, more U.S. residents traveled to Canada than Canadians traveled to the U.S. in June and July 2025, a historic reversal of normal patterns. David Adamas, CEO of Niagara Parks Commission, noted revenue from American travelers down 9%, with some U.S. visitors telling him they feel somewhat uncomfortable traveling to Canada given tensions. President Adam Sachs stated bluntly, "As long as the rhetoric around this, like Canada becoming a 51st state, as long as that continues, I think you're going to see a pretty ongoing reaction from Canadians." Airlines cut routes by the dozens. Air Canada eliminated 5 cross-border routes for winter. WestJet suspended 9 trans-border routes. United canceled Los Angeles-Toronto entirely. Over 20 Canada-US routes disappeared by May 2025, with total seat capacity dropping 90,200 seats in a single quarter. State governors attempted damage control. The gestures felt hollow. If your friend insults you, you don't give them $10 and go back to being friends. The World Travel and Tourism Council's president, Julia Simpson, delivered the harshest assessment. While other nations are rolling out the welcome mat, the U.S. government is putting up the closed sign. Prime Minister Mark Carney declared in September 2025 at the United Nations that the old relationship with the U.S. is over, positioning Canada as an alternative, reliable trading partner to nations seeking to diversify away from U.S. economic dominance. Canadian exports to the UK surged 63% in 2025. Exports to Europe increased 26%. The UK displaced China as Canada's second-largest export market after the US. The deliberate diversification away from US economic dependence represents a generational shift. I think we need to give up on the Canadians. The relationship is fundamentally broken. What was built over 80 years was broken in 8 months. Neither country intended to destroy their tourism relationship. Yet here we are. For now, Canadian families plan European vacations instead of Disney trips. American border town businesses close after generations. Workers in Las Vegas go months without shifts, symbols of a friendship that feels increasingly like ancient history rather than recent past.